Andrew Mack here with MMA Island. Today I'm with Comet FC promoter Joe Cav. Joe, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, even though this is the first event under the Comet FC name, I know this is not your first time as promoter. So, could you tell us a bit about your background and your prior promotion?
Yeah, so we had a promotion. We started in 2007. It was called World Championship Fighting, and we did 11 events under that name. We had some superstars fight for us over the years. We had, in my opinion, the greatest fighter that's ever lived. John Jones fought for us. He fought Parker Porter, who's the UFC heavyweight. He's 4-0. We had guys like Dan Lazone, youngest guy to ever fight in the UFC. We had Calvin Cato when he first started. Ken Stone, Rick Hahn, fought in Bellator, judo world champion. We had a ton of guys over the years come through. So we've been doing great fights for a number of years. And I got out of it. I had no plans on leaving. I did a real estate deal, and I came across this deal. It was a really good deal, and I thought I could make some money on it, and I did it. And then I talked to Rick, my matchmaker, and I said, "Look, we're going to start doing this thing in a couple of months. We'll plan another one. What do you think?" He said, "Yeah, let's do it." And then I found another real estate deal, and then I did that, and then I found another real estate deal, and then 10 years went by, and I hadn't done a show since. And I finally called Rick and said, "Hey, I'm ready to do this thing. Let's get back." And that was the year of the pandemic. Oh. In March, we had scheduled our first show for June, and I think it was June 18th, which is the night after our event this year. It's June 17th is our next event, but in March, they shut down the whole economy. They shut down everybody and said, no more people, no more venues, no more nothing. So it brought us up to this fight. Obviously, we're back now. So we're really excited about it.
So you said that you had promotion before, and now you have a different name promotion. Why the change?
So I had the name trademark back in 2008, World Championship Fighting. And another guy came out and started a company called World Fighting Championship. And he's done a bunch of shows. I guess they're pretty good shows. He does them out of Vegas. But he's done like 130 shows under that name. And he actually went and got his name trademarked, World Fighting Championship, which is, you can't do that. It's the same name. They just changed the words. So I called the trademark people and, I sent them a letter and said, "Hey, this guy's using my trademark. This is when I had it, and this is when he put it." And they said, "Yeah, 100% our fault. We shouldn't have given him that name. It's obviously your name." I said, "Okay, great. If you could straighten that out, it'd be huge. It would really help me out if you guys could straighten that out." And they said, "We don't do that. You have to bring him to court." And I was like, what are you talking about, bring him to court? I said, "I paid you guys $500 to make sure that this wouldn't happen. You're the guys that regulate this. You figure it out. Call me back." But we were already in the process of talking to Dana about the UFC Fight Pass deal, which is the network we're broadcast on. And I didn't want to get into a situation where there was a conflict or any type of legal actions with the name change and everything. It's just not fair to Dana, and it's not fair to the UFC Fight Pass guys to do that. So I just said, "Well, I'll go with the new name." And I had always kicked around a couple of names, and this was one that was on the top of the list, and Combat FC. And I said, "We'll go with that." And Rick seemed to like it. And, I asked my family what they thought, and everybody seemed to like it. And now that's us.
So you mentioned Dana White, the UFC president.
Yeah.
It's well known that you're a close friend of his. Could you talk about that friendship for a bit?
Yeah. So me and Dana worked at a hotel. He was 18 and I was 22. So 35 years ago, we worked at a hotel together, way before the UFC, way before, any of this stuff ever happened. So Dana's one of my closest friends, lifetime friend. And it's been unbelievable, to watch what he's been able to do, but it's been a blessing to be a part of it, right? I get to go to all the fights. I sit front row. He's the most generous guy in the world. I mean, he's taken me places and done stuff and, vacations and goofing around and meeting fighters. And, I'm a fan before I'm anything, right? And he is too. He loves the sport. He loves the action. He loves the fighters. It's been a blessing to be part of it. You know what I mean? I've got a chance to go to the biggest fights ever. I've got a chance to make friends with, guys that you would never be able to make friends with, Chuck Waddell's a good buddy of mine. I can name 1,000 guys that I'm friends with, but what happened is, I had a job selling technology. I worked for Sun Microsystems for about 15 years. And I was doing that full time. I was a salesman and I traveled quite a bit. And Dana said to me one day, you should think about managing some of these guys, because my background was in boxing. One of my best friends is a guy named Dana Rosenblatt. He's the middleweight champ of the world at one time back in the 90s. So we trained together every day, and his coach was his manager, and he's a friend of mine also, this guy, Joe Lake. And I kind of learned everything I know about the business from Joe. I would ask him questions. I'd say, why are you guys doing this? Why are you doing that? And I kind of watched what he did with Dana and how he built him up as a manager. And he really, I think Dana went on to, he lost one fight. He was like 35-1. And then he actually came back and avenged that loss against Vinny Pazienza. So Joe did a really good job managing his career and getting in fights that built him every time and got him to the next level. And I kind of was able to be a part of that and watch it. And that was a blessing. And then when Dana White got involved, he said, why don't you start managing some of these guys? I'd rather deal with you than anybody. At least I trust you. And he goes, and the business. So I said, yeah, that'd be cool. And I got a few guys. I think Sam Hoga was the first guy that I ever got. Sam was on the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. I had Kenny Florian and Marcus Davis and Patrick Cote and Drew Fickett, Sean Gannon and Alex Karalexis. And I did some stuff with Duke Rufus for a fight that he was supposed to have. I had a bunch of guys over the years, and I built a really nice business. But on top of making a little bit of money from it, which was nice, I had a great excuse to go to the fights every weekend. Which we were every weekend. Somebody was either fighting locally or fighting in Jersey or fighting in Vegas. So I got to travel for a ton of my life, a big part of my life, going to the fights, which is what I love. I have a passion for it. So, and Dana gave me that opportunity by saying, hey, why don't you start doing this? And it was a great idea. Like I said, I did it while I was selling technology, and it was just a side hustle, and it was a good excuse to go to the fights. So when I started the promotion back in 2007, I had to give up the management business. It just, there's like a conflict of interest there. If I'm managing guys that I'm promoting it, potentially I could be not fixing fights, but putting guys in with the wrong fights, you know what I mean, to make my guys look better. So I just decided that I would stop doing that. We did the World Championship Fighting back in 2007. Like I said, we did 11 events. It was incredible. I mean, just the opportunity to see guys like John Jones and Parker Porter, and, in the very beginning of their careers, I think, John was 4-0 and Parker Porter was 2-0, and they were the two best guys in New England, and they fought at 205. Just really cool stuff. And then, you get the opportunity to meet a guy like John, who's a tremendous dude. He's been nothing but awesome to us. He comes out and does appearances at the show for us after he fought, after he was in the UFC, and he didn't have to do that. He just did it because he's cool. He's just a really good dude. And that's one of the things that's been real fun about having my own promotion is I always bring somebody that's cool to the fights. We bring in somebody that everybody gets a kick out of seeing. We had Rampage Jackson come out. We had Kimbo Slice come out. We had Sean Gannon, the guy that fought Kimbo Slice. He used to come out to the events. Marcus Davis, Patrick Cote, Kenny Florian. We had Butterbean come out one time. I had Dana come out and do an appearance back in 2008. And that was before anybody even knew what the UFC was. A lot of people knew, but a lot of people didn't. It wasn't no one nearly as mainstream as it is now. And Dana came and did a special appearance and shook hands and took pictures with everybody. And we sold 4,000 tickets that night. It was, the biggest event we've ever done. And that's all because of Dana. People came to see him. We're trying to get him up, to come to do one of these shows with us soon, to do Looking for a Fight with us. And he had a conflict with this one because the fights are the next night in Austin. Calvin Cade is in the main event with, who the hell is he fighting?
Josh Emmett.
Yeah, Josh Emmett. I was going to say I could picture his face, but I couldn't think of his name. But that's going to be a fun fight. Calvin's a freak. He's just a monster. He's such a fun kid to watch. I'm really excited about that. So that's my reward. After I get through this fight, I'm going to be able to get the next night. I'm going to be able to take off, make a steak, and watch the fights. And the good thing about the fight business is I don't have to work. June 18th is the day after the fight, and I don't have to do anything for another month till I start preparing for the next fight. But the problem is, I take about if you think about it from a business perspective, I pick a date. So I picked June 17th was the date that I picked. And I picked it 3 months ago. And I took all of my money, about $130,000 is what it's going to cost me. And I bet it on June 17th. And I bet that I can make more money than I spent. And I won't know whether I did or I didn't until June 18th when I count the money. So I mean, I have an idea of where I'm at, but it's such a weird business because I start working 3 months before, and then every single day it just gets a little bit busier and a little bit busier and a little bit busier until I'm 2 days, 3 days out from the event like we are now. And I'm scrambling to get stuff done. I'm just like, I still have a checklist of things that need to be done. I still have, we're in good shape. We're going to set the cage up tomorrow, which is, it's going to be interesting because we've never done it in the cage before. I always did it in a 5-rope MMA ring, which I loved. The problem is I'm the last guy that liked it. I don't think anybody else likes it. People don't remember Pride Fighting Championship, some of the best fights ever, and they were all done in a 5-rope MMA ring. But if you mention it to the kids now, these young guys that are coming up that have been watching the UFC since they were little kids, they've never seen it done in a ring. So they just don't get it. They're like, you do it in a ring? What are you talking about, dude? This is cage fighting. We don't do it. You don't do it in a ring. But when you see it live, it's so much easier to see, because you can see from everywhere. And I think personally, it makes for faster fights. I don't think you see, you're obviously not going to see guys grappling on the cage. You have to stand and bang a little bit more. And I personally like it, but again, I got voted out on that one.
So it's been, you said 10 years since your last event, right?
Yeah, it went quick. It was crazy.
So I was talking to my instructor. He went to all of your events back in the day.
Oh, cool.
He was talking about how big of a deal it was to have MMA events in Massachusetts and all that stuff. Could you talk about the difference between MMA in mainly New England, but overall, like between, 2012 that you had your last event?
Yeah, I think 2011.
Yeah, 2011. So 11 years. So the difference in these 11 years between MMA back then and MMA now.
It's crazy. It's night and day. It's so mainstream right now. The UFC's done such a good job. They got an amazing team. Everybody that works there is passionate about the sport. Everybody that works there puts 1,000 hours a week in. It's funny because people always say to me, why don't you just go work for Dana? And I'm like, well, we're friends first off. I don't want to work for my friend. That's how you lose friends, right? And, I don't even know whether they'd have me. I say that like I assume that they would have me. I don't even know whether they would have me, but they work. Those guys work, a lot of hours. They put in a lot of time. It's not as glamorous as you think it is. Those people work a shit ton of hours putting that show together, and it's obviously tremendous. But back in the day when Dana bought the UFC, we used to call people and try to get them interviews. Nobody knew what the UFC was. There was no newspapers I remember the first time it was written up in a major newspaper. I think it was USA Today. And, and we were all like little kids, giggling because we were so happy because the acronym UFC showed up in the USA Today. Well, I don't even think it's a newspaper anymore. It used to be a daily newspaper that was out everywhere. Shows you how far back it was. But when Dana first bought this thing, he was trying to explain to people it was illegal in all the boxing commissions. There's nobody would sanction it, and no venues would have it. And he'd be going in trying to tell people, what it was and why it's a good sport and why it's going to be a big thing. And nobody would even listen to him. And I mean, they were banned from pay-per-view. If you think about that, right? They couldn't put it on pay-per-view. Porn is on pay-per-view, right? It was deemed one step lower than porn, and that's how bad it was. And Dana fought that battle every single day. And I watched it, and I don't just say it because he's my friend. I don't know anybody else that would have done it. I don't know anybody else that would have put the time into it and the passion into it. One of the things Dana's really, really good at is he'll tell, when he pumps a fight, he'll have to do all his media. And when he talks to somebody, he's just as passionate talking to that person. If he's already told a story 500 times, he's just as passionate about talking about it, and he makes you feel passionate about it. He's the best promoter out there. I mean, he's just done a tremendous job with it, and we kind of model ourselves after him, trying to make this thing, grow it as we can and build it up. And this UFC Fight Pass opportunity is insane. It's just, it's the next level. I've been trying to get a deal done with them for 15 years to work together. And now, we have a huge, throughout the Northeast, we'll have all the best fighters. We got guys coming in from California. We had a guy coming in from Uzbekistan. His visa got screwed up. I don't know if Rick told you about that when you guys talked, but we're going to have some real world-class fights, and it's going to be fun. This first event is stacked. I know Rick talked to you about the fight card, just stacked with really, really good fights. It's on UFC Fight Pass at 9:00 on June 17th. If anybody's, you can't make it to the event live, definitely check it out on UFC Fight Pass, and you'll see some great fights. And it's just a peek into what we're going to be doing going forwards. The minute we announced the UFC deal and we had posters out and we had flyers and all that stuff, and we started doing social media posts and some interviews and things like that, everybody came out of the woodwork wanting to be a part of it, And when we first started, I was telling people, hey, I'm thinking about getting back into this. This is going to be my new brand. But we really didn't have anything. We didn't have a website. We didn't have, we had an idea that we were going to do it again. And I think everybody was waiting to see what was going to happen. A lot of the camps that we talked to, we couldn't get fighters from. They had, the other obligations with promotions that they already work with. And I think now that everybody knows we're serious and we're back and we have the Fight Pass deal, we're going to be, it's going to be tough to compete with us to get fighters. You know what I mean? It's instead of us being tough to compete to get fighters. So one of the things that I've done with this show is I've invited a lot of the guys that I had talked to that I couldn't get. I went out of my way to make sure that I invited them personally to come introduce themselves to me, check out the event, and hopefully that we can get them for next time. And there's some great shows out there. New England's got some fun shows, and but the difference with this one is, I think Rick probably talked to you about this, is, we want very competitive fights to put on UFC Fight Pass. Because that's what really, when I had the conversation with the UFC, I said, what does success look like for us? Like, if we're successful, what do you guys see? What does it look like? Explain that to me. And they said, we want more subscriptions. We want more people to subscribe to UFC Fight Pass. That's their brand. I think it's $10 a month. It's by far the best thing I've ever done. I steal my brother's Netflix. And I think everybody does that. Yeah. And the Fight Pass is the thing. That's what I watch. That's my go-to. If I come home from a day or whatever I did, I come home, I throw on the fights. I leave them on in the background while I'm making dinner, and I watch the fights. I watch a million of them. There's so much good content on there. It's amazing. And then every Friday night, there's a live event. There's CFFC, which is incredible. There's Titan FC, which is a great show. LFA, some of the best fights, these guys are the murderers row, you know what I mean? These guys are really putting out a great product, and we're happy to be part of that team, that's going to be doing the same things. The other thing that the UFC told me was they want us to develop fighters. They want us to bring guys in, make them stars, and then bring them from basically bring them up through the ranks, and then have the UFC come take them from us. And, we had been doing that before it was part of the plan. So like I said to them, I said, that's where John Jones came from. That's where Calvin Kattar came from. I mean, we're already doing it. We're already putting stars into the UFC. And I think, with Rick and Christine's one of our matchmakers, they put a solid fight card together with this one. And I think as we grow and as people want to fight for us, they're going to get better and better and better. And it's just a huge opportunity for guys to fight. This particular event, one of my buddies he corners Joe Lazone. He's Joey Lazone's boxing coach. And he's very, very tight with Dana and me. And he called me today and he said, you realize that we're all watching the fight on Friday night? I said, what do you mean? And he goes, Dana, me, the whole gang that we hang out with that are at the fights, they have a thing set up where they're actually watching my fight on Friday night. So nice. All the guys, if anybody's listening, all the guys that are fighting on the card, you want to fight in front of Dana, he's going to be watching you on TV. So it's a huge opportunity, and it's so cool to say that. It's just, that's what we want, and then we definitely want Dana to come in and do an event with us, one of those looking for fights, because we'll sell the place out. We'll get our pick of fighters. Everybody in the country will want to fight for us for that. And, that'll be a bang up card in itself. So I don't know. And I'm excited. I'm really excited.
So I asked this question of both Rick and Mike, but I think you're the best person in all of New England to answer this question. So New England MMA has grown so much, even post-pandemic. The fighters, the events, everything's gone through the roof. How do you see the New England MMA scene in 8 years, in 2030? How do you see New England MMA to be?
We get so many good camps. There's so many good schools and so many good fighters. And, you talked about the change in the last 10 years. Guys now, the kids that were watching, it used to be you had a boxer, you had a wrestler, you had a jiu-jitsu guy. And then they did, if you had a wrestler, he did boxing, he did jiu-jitsu. But now it's not like that. You have true mixed martial artists, guys that are coming up learning the sport of mixed martial arts. They have wrestling, they have jiu-jitsu, and they have boxing, and they're all even. You're not getting guys that are coming out of one discipline. Excuse me. And I think that that's going to continue to grow. And I think when guys figure out this style, that like guys like Khabib Nurmagomedov and those guys, when they figure out how to fight around that style, and that's only a matter of time till that happens, because it's happened with every discipline there's been. It started out with jiu-jitsu. When they finally got to a point where guys could compete at the high level in jiu-jitsu, they no longer dominated. The jiu-jitsu guys no longer dominated, when in the beginning they were killing everybody. And then it was the wrestlers that came in, guys like Mark Coleman and Kevin the Monster Randleman and those guys that were the ground and pound kings. They came in and they were dominating everybody. And then when guys learned a little bit of wrestling defense, you got a guy like Chuck Liddell where you might be able to get him down, but the minute he hit the ground, his ass was back up, and then you had to stand and bang with him. And I think you're going to see that going forwards. It's the next evolution is guys that are truly have never done anything but mixed martial arts. They're not, guys like boxers that are making the transition, or wrestlers that are making the transition. And I think that at some point, somebody's going to be able to figure out that style to fight against guys like Khabib. And when they do, it's going to be even more exciting, because those guys are so dominant right now. That's not my style. I don't love that, to be completely honest with you. Mm-hmm. It's not, I'd much rather see, a guy like Chuck Liddell.
I think
background there. Sorry about that. I'd much rather see fights like that, where guys are going to stand and bang and even the Glover fight the other night. I mean, that was incredible. So that's what you want to see. That's really what I love that. I don't want to see a guy laying on, trapping your legs and laying on top of you and hitting you with short shots. It's just not my thing. They're obviously dominant, and they're very difficult to beat, but I think at some point you're not going to see that. And as far as New England itself, you're going to see superstars coming out of here. We already have them. This kid, Mike Bulger, that you just talked to, he's on his way. He's going to be a star. He's, articulate, handsome kid, and he can fight. And he's got a well-diverse background. He's going to be a guy that's going to be a star. We're going to help build him and guide his career and have him fight for us all the time. And we're, you're going to see a guy like him in the UFC. And there's a whole handful of guys. I don't know if Rick talked to you about the undercard. I mean, we got an amateur fight that three-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion that trains out of Delagradis. I mean, that's an exciting fight. That kid, that's going to be his first fight. He's got a big test in front of him against Lee. And hats off to Lee for taking it. But a guy like that, he looks at it and says to himself, if I'm going to go to the UFC, if I'm really going to be who I say I'm going to be and be a top fighter, at some point in my life, I'm going to have to fight three-time world champions in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm going to have to test myself. And he doesn't want it to be the first time when he goes to the UFC. He doesn't want to find out that he's not ready. And what's the worst that's going to happen to him? He gets submitted. Fabio's got to get him to the ground first. You know what I mean? It's not like, it doesn't start on the ground. You know what I mean? He's got to get him down, and he's got to get past his punches, and he's got to get past his knees. And, will it happen? I don't know. That's what I love about these fights is they're pick'ems. They're very, very evenly matched fights. And those guys, Rick and Christine, do a really good job of that. And I'm pumped. I'm really pumped to watch the fights. And the other thing I'm excited is to actually sit down and try to watch the fights this time. I brought a crew of people on, the TV production guys, and I have a friend from Florida that does 5 of these shows like ours. He's partners with Roy Jones Jr. and Roy Jones Jr. Boxing. He's partners with Game Bread Masvidal and Jorge Masvidal's promotion. He's partners with Showtime Pettis. He owns Icon Fighting Championship, and he owns Island Fights. So he does 5 of these events televised. I think 4 of them are on UFC Fight Pass, and 1 is on Bare Knuckle Fighting. And he's a guy named Dean Toole, and Dean's coming up to actually help us through the entire first event. He's bringing up his team. He's bringing up all his production guys, all his lighting guys, his DJs, everybody. And it was a little bit more expensive to bring all the guys in, but I don't want to screw this up in front of Dana. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to explain to him what went wrong, because I decided I was going to save a little bit of money on the production. I want this to go right. I want the UFC guys to say, this is it. This is the Northeast top event, and we're excited that we brought him on. And that's what we're going to do. It's going to be a really good night. But with all those extra people, what I was trying to say is I'm hoping to sit down and actually watch the fights, which will be the first time I've ever done it. Usually I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But all my old team has come back. And then all these new people coming in. It's, I think it's going to be an opportunity to actually sit and check out a few of these fights. And I'm really excited about it.
All right. Awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No, as far as tickets, I'd like to get the word out on tickets. If you need to buy tickets, you can go to tix.com, TIX.com, and put in Combat FC, and you can get tickets right there. You can get them through our website, which is combatfc.tv, combatfc.tv. And all of our social media handles are at combatfc.tv also. So we try to keep it consistent there, which worked out pretty well. But the fight is Friday, June 17th. I'm sorry, I keep saying the wrong date. Friday, June 17th, which is this Friday. And if you can't make it out live, make sure you watch it on UFC Fight Pass. It starts at 9.
For anyone interested, we'll have all their links in the video description below. All right, Joe, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your help. Thanks.
Have a good day.